applause. I'm seeing if you can hear me on the mic. Yes, hopefully you can. Welcome to SpeakuP Monday, everybody, which is episode 440. We're here at Tropical Nomad, and tonight we have a brother, Krishna from Chieppa, well, I know you from Jiwa Garden that we'll go into, but there's also Serenity, Eco Lodge and Guesthouse that we're also going to get into. And tonight, one more seat for this beautiful lady over here, please. Hadis, yes, grab her a seat. So tonight is really, all about, we're talking about it before, right? We feel that maybe it's not the sexiest topic, right? When you talk about tax, legal, compliance in any particular field. Tonight was all about eco, but we beg to differ, right? I think it's very sexy, and I think it's very important because a lot of the time we start things without realizing the runway to take off, the runway to land, and the runway to jump out of the plane if you have to, right? The parachute. So tonight will be, an episode talking about these particular matters, right? And for those of you just tuning in, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick, known as, a few things, but one is a gateway to Indonesia, another one is a growth strategist here in Indonesia. So we work in between government, between private investment, between foreign investment and private enterprise. What we love actually is like public-private partnerships. So public-private partnerships. If you haven't heard of what they are, you'll learn more about those today because we're talking about local public-private partnerships, and I think it's a real way to get things done. It's a mix of government, private enterprise, and also foreign investment most of the time, not always. So this is what I think is really important for the discussion tonight that we'll get into in a minute. But look, shall I give you an introduction or shall I let you introduce yourself? What would you prefer, Krishna?
I'm happy to introduce myself.
Love it. All right. Come on, my brother. Introduce yourself.
So for the longest time, Indonesia, in terms of foreign investment, was never really open fully. And the whole PTPMA really opened the last, 20 years ago, something very new. And so for me, the longest time, I kind of knew my parents as my dad, who was French, and my mom, who was Balinese. And because there was never a clear structure for foreign owners, I remember my dad always running from the front of the shop to the back every time there was immigration controls. And that was how I kind of grew up. It was basically my dad, who was married to my mom, but didn't have the proper 100% Kitas papers. And it was like, oh my God, immigration. My dad's like, okay, I'm going to the back. And we had no real choice. My parents were both very poor when they were together. Kind of a unique story. And so I think today it's really important to just share the legal and tax aspect from more of an experience point of view. Because I never really knew Indonesia as a black and white country. There's a lot of corruption, that is no joke. But in a way, it's good, in a way. Okay, so I know there's going to be a lot of arguments about this. But Indonesia is in my point of view, a very fair country. So that's basically who I am, to kind of share a little story about how I kind of grew up and how Indonesia has evolved a lot.
Now, just before you do that, because he didn't take the hint, but that's okay, we have backup. So Krishna Chieppa is a passionate advocate for sustainable tourism and environmental stewardship here in Bali. As a director of Serenity Eco Guesthouse in Canggu, a family-run business that has embraced permaculture principles since its inception in the year 2000. Who remembers the year 2000? Hopefully you all do. Krishna has dedicated his career to addressing the island's urgent challenges around pollution and unsustainable development. And also his expertise lies in integrating eco-friendly initiatives with community-driven projects like Jiwa Community Garden, that we'll get into later, striving to create a positive and sustainable impact on Bali's future. And just a few key takeaways that we're gonna have a few more than that, but just a few just to get you warm, right? So number one is setting up agreements for community gardens. Learn the legal framework for establishing community-driven eco projects, ensuring long-term success and sustainability. I almost got stuck on that sustainability. More chairs, please. Yeah, you got some more chairs? You're coming in. Great to see you, by the way. Number two, building materials, legal and tax implications. So discover the most sustainable and cost-effective building materials and their tax and legal ramifications in Bali. And last, but by no means least, he's going to remember all of these, right? Three, eco-friendly activities, legal and tax insights. And it's about exploring the types of activities that align with eco projects in Bali and how to navigate the local legal and tax systems to maximize positive outcomes. Now I want to hear this story, so please continue where you left off.
Right. So we didn't have a choice really to be fully legal. It was just out of this world expensive back then. And so when my family started the business, we never thought about going at it strong, right? In permaculture, we say, slow and steady, which means whatever you build, go slowly. We never saw the kind of development that's happening today. Today when you see a project, it's big, it's multi-story buildings, it's concrete, and in terms of maybe return investment, I get it. You want to build fast, you want to get your money back, but when you want to talk about saving Bali for the future, this is not going to be sustainable long term. Nothing that you build really quickly. Humans are bad predictors of the future. We are not very good at knowing what's going to happen next. We tend to think that everything's going to be super optimistic. Everything's going to grow really, really, really far. Now, what no one probably told you is that the government knows this, right? If you want to start a company today and you say, I want to be fully legal. I want to have all the legal papers and I want to everything black and white. So of course, if you're not Indonesian, you would do a PT-PMA. A PT-PMA which only started 2007, 2008 during the Jokowi period where he wanted to get foreign investors, but have these foreign investors feel safe that their money would not be taken by the local partner. So before the PT-PMA era, it was the maximum was maybe PT, local PT. A local PT is that you have to have at least 51% Indonesian shareholder. Now, I know tonight we have in the audience quite a few pioneers who've been here for a long, long time. So I'll be curious to know their takes on this. But a PT, a local PT, maximum 49% foreign ownership, right? But Jokowi changed that. They made it that a foreign investor could come in and they could not own the land. Indonesia still has under its regulations, you cannot own land as a foreigner, but your company can own the land. You can make yourself the director and hence you own the land. Now what they never tell you is that PT, local PTs, and local and PMAs are treated very, very differently. It's unfair, but the facts are facts. If I, as an Indonesian, want to build a PT, a local PT, I can go to any agency and they will charge me at the very most 10 million rupiah. 10 million rupiah to start a PT in Indonesia, a private limited enterprise in Indonesia. To build a PMA, for those who have already made, it's not 10 million. It's so much more. It costs you so much money to have a foreign enterprise in Indonesia. Now, the issue is this. I'm coming from an angle of sustainability. Serenity, the family guest house, it took us 10 years to get the fertility of the land to where we wanted. It took us 10 years to plant trees from its seed and grow. Today, people come to Serenity, they're like, wow, look at all these trees, so beautiful. It took 10 years. For people today in Canggu, the majority, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the majority will not buy the land outright. Too expensive. Even if you have a PMA, too expensive. You would lease the land. If you only have limited money, you would negotiate for 5 years or 10 years. If you have a bit more stock and you bought at the right time or you rent at the right time, 25 years. But how can you be sustainable if, using the example of Serenity, it took you 10 years to be where you are today? How can you say you want to be sustainable when it takes you so long to really nourish the land? And so people do what they think is best, which is a nice, strong brick building. And when it comes to brick building, the government, for them, it's a permanent building. And this is where the second part of it being so unfair. Indonesia has a distinction between permanent buildings and non-permanent buildings. You want to build in the green zone? You can, if it's a non-permanent building. If it's a permanent building, you cannot. Now, I'm sure it's a gray area, all right? I'm sure people will have different experiences. Maybe they built on a green zone, a non-permanent building, and got in trouble, maybe. From my personal experience, low-key is really the way forward. You build one non-permanent building, and then you live there. You're not there to start a business, you live there. And then you slowly build a second non-permanent building. And over time, slowly, then you start to become a business. Not straight away, you take your time. And this is where it's really important to understand. The government comes at you straight away if you are a PMA, you have a nice brick building, and they will tax you very hard, very fast in the very beginning. Most PMAs are not created in Bali. They're sent to Jakarta for approval. Local PTs are usually just for Bali-wide. And Jakarta is more like out of honorary approval. That's why it takes so much longer for a PMA to be created. When it's approved and everything in Jakarta, they usually send an audit team from Jakarta to check up on your company. If you are not declaring enough money, they'll come and audit you. If you are declaring too much money, they'll audit you. Maybe they could get some more money out of you. This is rarely the case in my experience if you do a local PT, low-key. So for me, growing up, I never understood the whole PMA concept. I just thought it was crazy. I understand why there are PMAs. But the whole idea of, in my opinion, what made Bali amazing was that you had no choice but to partner up with an Indonesian, a local, a Balinese. And for me, what makes Bali super special for me is the fact that this island has a beautiful mix of foreign and local. Nowhere else have I experienced this. I've been to Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, Germany, France. I've never seen an island where there's that collaboration between the foreign and the local. That beautiful, detailed efficiency of foreign countries and the hospitality of Balinese or Indonesians in that sense. So that's my take on this. It's the fact that Bali, because of the whole PMA concept, you don't have to connect with the community. You don't have to. If you have the money, no one said you had to work with the community. But back then, before the whole PMA concept, you had no choice. The only way to start a business in Indonesia is either you partnered with a local person and you trusted the person, you had to find someone you trusted, or you had to marry into it, like my dad did.
Just to give you a break, by the way, incredible speaker. Those of you who know about Toastmasters, he's also like what do you call, like a Toastmaster trainer? You can tell the way he speaks, like it just comes, you're like, I want to hear more. I love you, brother. So it's a bit like this. So the first part, just a quick raise of hands. So who here has set up a PMA? Just raise your hand. Okay. Who here has set up a PT? Raise your hand. Local company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So we have some. So who here, just from what he just said, are more interested now in opening a PT than a PMA? Just raise your hand. So who here is more interested? in opening maybe a PT as opposed to a PMA. Yeah, because I mean, the first part of what Krishna's been saying, and by the way, those in the audience, the third mic that you spoke on before, the other reason is because it's coming back, right? You won't need to do anything except maybe ask a question or so, but now you won't be afraid of the microphone. So that's why I did it before, just so you know. I know.
To be clear, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that people kind of forget that option is there. Yeah. You know, the PT option, the local PT, it is there. But you do have to know an Indonesian, and you have to trust the person. It could be your partner, it could be a business partner, it could be, so I'm not saying that one is better than the other, you know. I'm just saying that I grew up in a time where there was no option. So you had no choice but to connect with some Indonesian person.
Yeah, you know, on that, I think, you know, jokes aside, I think that's a beautiful thing, you know, because, I mean, again, I've been here, my wife's Indonesian, the kids are half Indonesian, half Australian. I look at the audience and I see a mix of people from here and from there, yeah? But I think part of it is that being, you know, responsible foreigners, you know, we don't want to contribute to the destruction of Bali, for example, in any way, shape or form. So I think having that, you know, what we talk about in our business is that if you want to be here and do a significant company, look also for a local partner. You know, and it's not just because, you know, like when in Rome,
it's much cheaper.
It's much cheaper. But also you learn as you go. Like the amount of things which I've learned from kind of hanging out with kings and different Balinese people and being involved in ceremonies, I've learned so much more, not only about Bali, but about myself through the ceremony. Because through being somewhere that's not your home, in a way you have to be a little bit more attentive to what's going on. So Detlev over here, bring him to the conversation, been here for 20-something years, did a great interview the other day, which I watched, and he was saying about, you know, to paraphrase, we come with these biases as a foreigner from somewhere else, and then when you're here, in many ways in general life, when somebody dies, that's a shame, or it's sad that they died, and I think as your wife has said, no, they're not in pain anymore. They're free. It's just the way that we think can be completely different sometimes. And I think that that's a wonderful way to do. So having a local partner who's Indonesian, so through them, you're actually learning more about yourself and the biases that you have as a foreigner coming here. And you learn about things like Tri Hita Karana, Gotong Royong, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, Pancasila. These things, if you don't know what they mean, I'll go into them later on. But very powerful things that will change your life when you actually understand the meaning or part of the meaning of it, because it goes so deeply. But please, yeah.
I mean, corruption is a very subjective aspect, right? When you're trying to build a company in France, I know my parents did. In the third year, they had to declare bankruptcy because the taxes were too high. And then on the opposite extreme, they coming here to Bali and they did their company. I think they didn't pay their taxes for the first few years. And actually, my mom, I think on the 4th year of operation of Serenity, she was like, I think we should start paying taxes. I feel really bad about this. We're going to get audited and everything. And my mom went to the tax office and said, I want to declare our taxes for the restaurant. And the tax guy was like, why? And she's like, no, I want to do it. I want to be legal. And what happened next was she was penalized because she declared her taxes, where honestly the guy at the tax office said, you don't have to yet. It's too small of a business, you don't have to yet. But my mom wanted to do the right thing. And for the next 1 year, lots of penalizations. One story, we were building a pool, hand-dug pool at the Guesthouse. And because my dad was the first one to go to the tax office, they were like, a pool, that's 100 million rupiah. 20 years ago, 100 million rupiah. And my dad was like, 100 million rupiah, it cost me 30 million to build the pool. Why is there a tax for a pool? My mom goes the next week, same thing, 100 million. The second week, she's in tears. She's in the receptionist. She's like, what is happening? And she told me the story. It was a tax guy that comes next to her and says, oh, what's wrong? It's like, I can't afford this. This is 100 million rupiah. And the guy's like, oh, Okay, look, just write a letter saying, I'm sorry, I cannot pay this much. And then you give that letter. And the story goes, they paid maybe 5 million, right? So
hold on a second. Wait. Hold on. It was 100 million originally.
Yeah.
And then they ended up paying 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this was 20 years ago, right? Would that be considered corruption? Right? It's such, and I'm very lucky because, my dad, he was born French, corruption is a very bad thing. And then you kind of grew up in this kind of stories of people, your friends, getting audited by the tax office or the environmental office. And then because they didn't do the black and white thing, they're still here today. My story, my family's story, 100 million 20 years ago, doesn't make sense. So the question is, when you're coming here, and this is my personal opinion, when you're coming here and you're trying to do everything black and white, is it really the best thing to do? Because black and white means you're spending a lot of money up front. You're holding a lot of money in the banks here because to make a PMA, they ask you, what is it, $100,000, $200,000? Some kind of that money in the bank. You are strapped. You're like, I have to make my money back pronto. And this is where I think for me corruption is kind of a gray topic. It's not black and white. It's you want to do the right thing. You want to be sustainable. You want to make an eco-friendly project. But you haven't even started and you're getting kicked from the left with taxes, the right from the legal papers. It's not right.
On that note, question one, right? Setting up agreements for community gardens, learn the legal framework for establishing community-driven eco projects, ensuring long-term success and sustainability. So if there's people maybe here in the audience or watching, which they know about, by the way, you can explain what Jiwa Gardens is in a second, but they want to maybe set something up that's eco. There's one guy here who's doing it already. There's a few others as well. What are some tips which come up from you of, that legal framework for establishing eco projects, ensuring long-term success and sustainability?
So Jiwa Community Garden is a half-hectare project that started during COVID. It's in Pererinan. We do organic gardening. We have a coffee shop. We have a Bali for events. It's a great community. And I'm very lucky to be given this land to work on. So the framework, it's more about the mindset. I never went into this project saying, I'm going to build a PT and we're going to negotiate with the landowners, have a price deal, and we're going to work hard at it. No, it was the fact that there was no real general legality to it. It was like, you got a piece of land. It's been empty for 30 years. Can I help you work on it? He never said, what are your legal papers? They couldn't care less. Most people don't really care unless the auditors come. But if you come at it at a very low angle, you're coming like, I'm not trying to build the next 5-star hotel. I'm just going to do some gardening. Now imagine if you had that kind of mindset before you start any project, right? Let's say you live somewhere. Even better if you speak Bahasa, even better if you speak Balinese. You're trying to integrate, you're trying to observe the area around you. You're not trying to come in and be like, I know what's best for everybody. I'm going to build this beautiful project. No, you come in here and you make connections. You don't need any legal papers to make connections. But this takes time. It takes at least one year. Why 1 year? Because that's one season. You have the rainy season, the sunny season, and you have that 1 year cycle. How many people do you know that have built a business by living here less than 1 year? Yeah. Too many. Too many people coming here, they haven't stayed even 1 year here as just to enjoy Bali as is, and they're already building a project. What's the rush? The rush to build a business, get heavily taxed because you did not properly structure a business, to have all the legal papers, which are, by the way, not black and white. There's nothing of the legal regulations that are black and white. The environmental papers are now black and white. It was only recently that they're trying to make all the red tape go away. But 10 years ago, if you want to have proper legal papers, it would cost you at least 50 million. If you're trying to be the most environmental project, still, they don't care, 50 million.
You know, what you said before is so good. Just a quick, I call it an honesty check. Who here has suffered from FOMO coming to Bali and they want to do something straight away? Just raise your hand. Honesty check. You see, I see, you know, maybe like 5% of the audience is putting their hands up. 30% are smiling like, yeah, that's me. Honesty check, people. All right, thank you, my brother. So again, we're on the framework, and you're saying that mindset is the first one.
Start low key, you know, make connections. Before Jiwa Community Garden was started, I didn't have the confidence to do it until I've checked up on every other project in Bali that was equally sustainable. I went to Emas Hitam. I went to the Roll Foundation in Bukit to check up on them, to see what was happening. Yeah. Right? It's so rare that you're given the opportunity during COVID to take time. And so I did. And I wish more people did that. Right? Canggu is growing fast. I know. This year, the price of land is $200,000. Next year is maybe $400,000. You know, you're missing out. But everything that comes, you know, goes up, goes down. It's going to come down eventually, or at least not grow so fast. So,
and there's other places in Bali, right?
There's a lot of places in Bali. What's the rush? Take your time. So that's the framework. It's like, start slowly. There's no rush to become legal on day one. Jiwa was only become a PT after 3 years of operations. 3 years. And the only reason we did it is so we could create a Jiwa bank account. That was the only reason. No rush. I don't stand for corruption, to be clear, right? I don't stand for corruption. But there's no rush. And you know, my story about my mom being asked 100 million, then been asked to pay 5 million, that is not a unique story. Everything is negotiable. As long as you don't come at it with a strong and heavy posture. Come at it be like, I'm really sorry. You know, minta maaf, I'm really sorry. I don't know all the regulations. Please explain to me and I will learn.
That is so true, man. Great point. So there was something else, but it will come back. Building materials, legal and tax implications. Discover the most sustainable and cost-effective building materials and their tax and legal ramifications in Bali.
Right. So Indonesia is a fair country, in my opinion, because of this. They have tier systems. Like every other country, they have tier systems, right? They have low risk, middle risk, high risk. What is low risk, right? You have the small restaurants with less than 20 seats. Middle risk, 50 seats. High risk, more than 50. You know, talking about that. When you look at the regulations for each level, each tier, it gets obviously more complicated, more complex, more legal permits, more certificates to have had. And what about the Waroongs? Do you think Waroongs have any legal papers? They have 0 legal papers. And why are they not in prison? Because Indonesia is a fair country. We have a very big middle and lower class. Middle class, according to Reuters, there was an article, is if you spend between $150 to $600 per month. That is middle class. So we are living the dream. I'm sorry, but I'm not spending less than $600 a month. So we're living a dream here. So we have a different way of looking at the world. So we also cannot forget that sometimes it's okay to go with the low way. So building structures, again, like what I said before. Green zones, yellow zones, red zones. Green zones, no building. Yellow zones, mixed use, maybe. You can convert it as you wish. Red zones, commercial, touristic. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. But the green zone, if you want to build a 3-story cement building, you are in trouble, absolutely in trouble. If you want to build a small house, just a small non-permanent house, a gladak that will cost you maybe 100 juta to build, that's okay as long as you're low key. Keep it low key. And if you try to build something big, you're in trouble. But if, let's say you have that kind of mindset, say, I want to live in Bali and I only have $100,000. Right now, to live in Canggu, to buy a piece of land, impossible, too expensive. Travel 30 minutes to the north, it's now maybe only $20,000 to buy a piece of land. No, $30,000. A gladak, 100 million rupiah. You can build a house for nothing here. Indonesia is very fair in that aspect. And the government, because they want to support the mass population of Indonesia, they rarely go for the low or middle class. They usually go first to the higher class. And it's not because they want to. They only have limited capacity. Has anybody been to a government office in Bali? Right? How many people are, let's say, in charge of one dinas or in one office? 5 people, 10 people. Every month on TripAdvisor, you can see, if you ever checked, the listings increased by 10 every month. Only last month it stagnated. So you have 5 people, 10 people maybe, if you're lucky, to control all this growth. It's impossible. They don't want to let it slip, but they have no choice. They got to pick. They have 5 places to target. Who are they going to target? They're not going to target the Waroongs. They're going to target the 5 PMAs who just built a beautiful, beautiful mansion in the middle of Canggu. It's just the way it is. And that's why I think it's fair. Because at least in terms of this, if you want to go low-key, the government hits you a few years after, not in the beginning, you know? So build non-permanent, beautiful, cheap, and all the legalities of it will come way after. As long as you come at it from a very local, low-impact point of view.
You know, because I know Krishna, and I can speak to him forever. The whole point about this, right, is for you, the audience. That's why we have an in-person audience. This is episode 440. And the reason why we do this is because we played a little game before about know your neighbor, right? Know the person on the other side of the room and maybe what they're looking for, because it could well be you. So the point is that now's the time where we have a microphone. We got that one, Guzman, the third microphone. Great. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. I know your hands work because you've been raising them. I know you can speak on the microphone because you all spoke on the microphone already. So we know that much. But just remember, you might be in 3 places, right? Might be a place where you think, man, I can't answer that question. Maybe he covered that already. I don't want to appear to be a little bit silly or a bit stupid. Maybe you'll be in a place where it's like, yeah, I want to ask, but then, I'm afraid. Or third might be, I want to ask a question, I know what it is, damn it, I'm going to ask that question, right? So whichever place you're in, ask the question.
Maybe
right?
there's something you disagree with. I would love to discuss about that, right? Yeah.
Now, were you playing with your hair, or were you, or yeah? It's like in an auction, Guzman, just over here, I knew it'd be him. It's just an auction where everybody's like, when they're scratching it, it's like, damn it, you just made a bid. Damn it. No, I don't want it.
What's defined as a non-permanent structure? I mean, you said brick building. Is it bamboo structure? I mean, is it something that's, when the inspectors are walking on site and they see, oh, there's a 3-story building here, but what if that's made out of bamboo or fully sustainable material or so?
Right. So the first non-permanent structure, of course, is bamboo is a good one. Wood is another one. But it's more about the architecture of itself, right? A gladak. The gladak house, if you go to Java, you go on Facebook right now, you search gladak, and you have people selling their gladaks for 100 million, 150 million. They come here and they build it for you. The biggest difference is if you need to demolish it within a week, can you? A gladak, it takes a week to build it, it takes a week to demolish it. And this is the best thing. No one, I don't see any gladaks anymore. I have 3 gladaks in Plaga. It's beautiful. Yesterday I paid my land taxes, 4 houses in Plaga. I paid 4,000 rupiah for 1 year because they don't consider gladaks a house. They consider just
4,000 rupiah.
4,000. And last year, I got penalized because I forgot to pay it. I was penalized 6,000 rupiah in Plaga. Now, maybe I'm lucky. Maybe because I'm Indonesian, maybe. But the government considers permanent buildings. This is a permanent building. You cannot demolish this in a week, right? Gladaks you can. If you have a 25-year lease, most people, they build a beautiful villa, concrete. What's the reason? Just have a gladak. In 25 years, move your gladak, live cheap, live free. So if that answers your question. If you can demolish it in 1 week.
Great question. So while another person, and I can feel on this side of the room there's a question, but while they figure out the question, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see foreigners, because the audience is probably 60-40 foreigners to Indonesian tonight, but what do you see some of the biggest mistakes? You mentioned about the biggest one being PMA versus PT. You're not endorsing one or the other, you're just pointing out that there's two and you could choose, right? But what maybe one or two other challenges that you find, or obstacles or silly things that foreigners do when they come in around the topic tonight is around the eco topic?
I think rushing is the really big point. Rushing it. Luckily, Serenity has been quite prosperous for the past 24 years. People come to me and my parents for advice. They say, I want to build the same thing. And I'm like, okay, tell me. So I never asked them about the concept of sustainability. You will get there eventually. Being sustainable is, I don't believe it's a switch kind of stuff. I think it's something that you have to build on slowly over time. They never ask me about how should I set up a project. They usually, like the last time that someone came to me, he said, I love your concept. I want to do the same thing. I have, my project is I lease the land from the landowner. Because I want to be fair, I give him 50% of the share ownership. I have a PMA because I want to be fully legal. The buildings are built by the landowner. The landowner charges me his rate because I believe he's fair. And I'm thinking like, at what point are you going to ask me a question about what should I do? And most people never ask me, how should I have started in the very beginning? They always ask me, how can I get to this concept of serenity? They never say, oh, what were the first steps I should have taken instead of this? It's usually always a bit 1 year or 2 years after they've started and they are running out of money. And that's yeah. Don't rush it. That's the biggest tip. Don't rush it.
And what else, right? So, foreigners coming in. This is called SpeakuP Monday Destination Indonesia. So it is about people from the outside as well, having a look, seeing these different stories from 10 different market sectors, from disruptors, from leaders, from stakeholders, and so on. So they get an accurate picture of what's happening in Bali, as opposed to clickbait headlines, which is about selling something else, right? Not the truth, right? So then, as you said, one thing they don't do is ask the right question. Right?
They don't ask questions. They ask how to get what is Serenity, for example. They never ask you, how should I have set up my project to begin with? It's always, how can I get this concept? The concept will happen eventually.
So how should most of these guys set up in the first place?
Wherever you want to start a project, live there for 1 year. I mean, it sounds so boring to say that, right? To live in a place for 1 year. But you want to tell me that you want to build a positive impact for your community without even knowing your community? It's a tough... And whatever I'm saying, it sounds so boring. When people talk about Jiwa Community Garden, they always ask Juka or Lenny, my other two co-founders. So Juka's in charge of the garden, Lenny's in charge of the community. They always ask, what's the vision for Jiwa? They never ask, what is the structure of Jiwa? Because it's not as interesting. But it really bites you in the butt, 3 years after when your project is going. And yeah, the legal side, the tax side is coming at you. Take your time. Take your time. I mean, how many people today do you know took at least 1 year before starting their project in that location? Yeah? Thank you. Very good. Right? One hand up. But it's
1%. One of the things actually just popped in there. So we're talking about runway to land, runway to takeoff, right? And remember, I said jump, right? You need a parachute. So landing. We've spoken about live there for 1 year, right? You've spoken about go in gently, right? Humble, see what it is. You've spoken about the size and structure of what it is maybe you want to do, in the beginning. Now, one question would be, if you do want to do something large, what would you do? That's one question. But before we get to that, let's throw one to the side. I want to talk about the takeoff, the landing, takeoff. So the takeoff can be, for a lot of people, what is the exit? Right? So people will start something, and I'm guilty, right? Guilty as charged, right? I start something, it's like, I've got to do it like this. SpeakuP Monday, what you're doing now, we started 5 years ago, whenever it was. I didn't start it with any other clue of what I was really doing. Right. Being straight up, right? It was like, you know what? I'm excited by it. I'm passionate by it. It became an obsession, and I knew I'd never stop. But I never thought about an exit. I have two other co-hosts, by the way, that two magnificent women who fill in from time to time. But I never thought about an exit. So people setting up an eco project, there's one over here, there's one over there, there's a few over here. If you had to, again, people don't think about this, right? What is the exit? Now, this doesn't necessarily mean, I build a company, I'm going to float it, become private, I sell out, then I'm going to live on a beach in wherever. I'm not necessarily saying that, but if things don't go to the plan, if things don't go well, how the hell do you get out? More importantly, what would you do in the beginning to mitigate, to minimize the risk for you going forward? One risk you mentioned, a foreigner coming in with the old system, 51% Indonesian, 49% foreign. If you're going to go to court or anything, good luck winning. Right? Good luck. Good luck, right? Maybe just don't go to court, guys. Right? But, that's an example, though, right? Yeah. So not only from a foreigner perspective, but how can Indonesians protect themselves against foreigners, right? So there's three questions in one there, but I know you can handle it. So just to come back to the basic point, what is the exit? What is the risk strategy that people maybe don't think about, but should think about moving into projects like this, especially in partnership with others, be it Indonesian, or there's a lot of foreigner to foreigner challenges that happen more than you realize here as well. It's not really the other way around, it's foreigner to foreigner, but that's another show.
That's a good question. How to exit? I don't have a lot of experience in exiting. It's not something that there's the basic stuff, right? When you want to make any kind of agreement, verbal is not strong enough. It's got to be written. It's got to be at least have a stamp on it, and even better notarized. Absolutely. Do not trust anything other than what's written on the notary's table. That's the short answer. To be honest, exiting is not something that I'm really used to. Serenity is still going really well. There's no point to exit now or ever. Jiwa is under some pressure, I'll be honest, right? So Jiwa has a 5-year agreement, and the agreement ends next year. But there's so much pressure from the landowners because the agreement that we had was profit sharing. I never put any money down to rent that piece of land. I didn't come at it, I'm going to make a big project. I came at it, what I said was, I'm going to come here with the community and make your soil more fertile. That is it. I didn't come in with a big plan. I came in really low. And I said, this land has not been taken care of for 30 years. Let me take care of it. They gave me a 5-year contract. And this is the final year that we're entering. A lot of pressure. How to exit? There's no answer there. Maybe someone from the audience has an example of partners going suing each other? Maybe there's a question from the audience.
It's interesting. Again, we don't script the questions outside of the 3 takeaways I said we're going to do, right? But here's the thing that I've noticed, because there's been a few people here that have been here maybe for 10, 15, 20 years. Mark, 29 years. I have to bring you up, brother. So a lot of these guys are doing 10, 15-year leases. So quite a few friends of mine are getting to that point now where it's time to renegotiate. So some people say, okay, you got 30 years, but they don't realize that it's 20 plus 10, or 10 plus 10 plus 10. So it's not like a foregone conclusion that it's going to be extended. And then by that time, the land is appreciating all the time. So then the challenge is that then you're kind of going back, trying to negotiate a deal which you did here, but now the land is there. Yeah. Right?
Okay. Again, it goes back to knowing who you're speaking to. Balinese people, as an island, are quite wealthy people compared to other islands. We mostly have family land, mostly in the mountains. During COVID, everybody just went back to their houses. So in terms of that standard, we're good. But we have weaknesses. One weakness is that, like every Indonesian, we're very religious. We go into debt for ceremonies. We go into debt for weddings, funerals. That's the weakness. And Balinese in general are not known to be hard workers. You talk in a way that helps them with their debt. It helps them to lower the prices. For example, I have one lease on Jalan Nelayan. I rent some rooms. When I rented the room 8 years ago, one room I rented for 500,000 a month. I renovated it and started to lease it to tourists for 3 million a month. That was my first business. I was 24 years old. The lease ended last year, and I was like, from 500,000 a month in Canggu, where are you gonna get that? But I kind of knew his situation. His son was gonna get married, and they are overspending. Most people in Canggu are overspending. You give a deal, I got it for 1.5 million. I rent it now for 6 million a month. It's a great investment. It's been the first ways I got to financial freedom at the age of 25. Not taking advantage of the people I work with, but helping them out, working together. I never came at them and say, I'm a big business developer, I'm here to make lots of money. No, I'm just trying to help out people. And good deals are there, but you gotta create that relation. It's an 8-year relationship in the making. I knew his father, I knew his mother, I knew him, I knew his children. That's the kind of relationships I'm talking about. So it pays a lot. The longer you are in Bali, the stronger your relations. You're not just an outsider trying to take advantage. You are someone here making the community better. If you got that mindset, the exits are much sweeter. They're much more tame. Right?
I must admit, coming here 7-8 years ago on this trip, that, quite often we come from different places, So I come from London, as you can hear from the accent. Before that was 25 years in Sydney, which is like a fast-paced city. And I think what also comes up is that we have our own cognitive biases, right? So this is a generalization, what I'm about to say. It's not true for everybody, right? But my feeling is that in the West, it's about me. In the East, it's about we. That one's it. So when you kind of begin to reach that place, and again, saw it in Detlev's interview, Mark, been here for 20 years, I see it in him so clearly and obviously. Who else we got over there? Yes, we got Ferry over here, who's been here for a long time, Mr. Global Extreme, been there for many years as well. And the key breadcrumbs in what you've said throughout everything that you've said is actually about coming in as a human being first. Whereas the Western mind is like, how can I screw this person? Sorry, guys, I'm just being general here. How can I screw this person to get the best deal for me? Right? Whereas you come to a place like Bali, and it's the opposite mindset in many, many ways of like, in many ways, it's like you don't give to receive. But if you come with that heart set, mindset, soul set of give first, but not to receive. Give because it's the right thing to do, damn it, right? It's incredible what comes back. And the things that you mentioned, I mean, very recently, I won't go into the details, but I found myself in a situation that was like, whoo, it was a bit hot. And to say the least, maybe ask me after if you really want to know what it was, right? I won't say it on camera. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because I was being just down to earth and normal with the people who are also involved, we reached a super conclusion quite quickly. And I've seen people in a similar situation going with the bravado that a lot of Westerners come with. Sorry, Westerners, I'm bashing you a bit tonight, but this is the truth. If I come in with that bravado, I'm not walking out the door. I'm staying for a long time, right? By the way, there's nothing to do with being in prison, just in case you're wondering, right? Rob was in prison. No. But what I'm trying to say is that this is one of the things, which is, again, I mentioned before, right? Gotong royong, Tri Hita Karana, Pancasila, right? These are three things that every foreigner should know. If you don't know because you just arrived, that's okay. But no, find out as quick as you can. I'm going to put him on the spot in a minute. But these are the things that underpin the place where you are. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity, united in diversity, is the motto of the country where you sit, right? You're talking, I say this a lot, but I'm getting used to it now, 700 plus cultures, 500 plus languages, almost 300 million people, 17,000 plus islands. I think 27 is one of the average age in Indonesia or something like that, 27 or so. This is a phenomenal place for so many different reasons. But one of the reasons which I want you to explain those three things, everybody. So we've got Gotong Royong. So let's do Bhinneka Tunggal Ika first, because then Gotong Royong is the answer to it. And then Tri Hita Karana, your view.
Oh, right. So Gotong Royong is great. Gotong Royong basically means working together, and not many people use it. Gotong Royong is drilled in us from school. So when you ever need something done quickly, and it could be already past the work time, but if you say Gotong Royong and you really believe in it, every staff who's supposed to go home, they will help out. It's drilled in us. Because if you are that one person who does not Gotong Royong, it's malu, it's shame. And this is a strong tool that not many people use in Bali or Indonesia. Gotong Royong. You just say that word, it's like a magical thing. Oh yeah, Gotong Royong. And then everybody will go there. Because if you don't follow Gotong Royong, you are the one that's left out. And Indonesians do not like to be different. They don't like to be different.
We.
Yeah. Yes, right? Use Gotong Royong. If you have a business here and you don't have weekly Gotong Royongs, you're missing out on a lot of energy. Serenity has a weekly Gotong Royong. The staff hate cleaning. They hate helping other departments. But once a week, Gotong Royong, we each go to each department and clean the department together. And they do it. They don't care if you're accounting or finance or purchasing or front office. You will grab a broom and you will sweep because Gotong Royong. Wow. Number one.
Bhinneka Tunggal Ika.
Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, I think it's the sentence, right? Unity in diversity. It's obviously subjective, but I feel Indonesia is a very non-racist country. We are all colors. Chindos, from Timor, black, white. There's nothing really specific. Now, there is a bit of tension between the East and the West, right? They say all the investments are in the West, and the East is kind of forgotten. And it's a bit of, people want to be more white-skinned than dark-skinned. But in general, we do believe that together we're stronger. That's it. Pancasila is the 5 silas. It's the 5 the guiding principles of Indonesia. I do not know by heart, but the first one is Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, which is religion. Religion is a big thing in Indonesia. You cannot talk bad about it. You go to prison. You cannot disrespect another religion. That's just basically it. But one of the silas is also equality for all people. And that's why is it that the government is so fair to all the classes, or maybe more focused on the upper class than the middle and lower class? Because of that, there's that sila. have you ever seen on Instagram where a rich person dissed a poor person and suddenly the whole Indonesian community attacks this rich person? It's a common thing here, that community aspect. So that's one thing. I don't know by heart the other silas, but this is basically the guiding principles of Indonesia. This is the way you have to accept doing business here.
Love it. And look, just as we begin, if there's any more questions, we'll begin to wrap up soon. But the whole point about tonight was obviously about eco and about the
mindset.
The mindset, the non-sexy, but I think it's very sexy. But there's two things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So one is, is there anything left that maybe you'd like to talk about that you think is important for people to know, which are coming here? Maybe the topic about tonight is about eco and about legislation, tax, and so on, and so on. Number one. And then number two, we've spoken about the culture and the mindset on purpose. We didn't plan this, but I knew it would come up, because understand where you are first. Understand what the ground is. So if you've listened to what's been said tonight, and you've listened about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, you've listened about Pancasila, Gotong Royong, Tri Hitakana we didn't get to. Maybe that can be one of the things you can talk about. But these things are the ground that you're on. When you realize that in the West, me, in the East it's we. If you get there, then you'll get there. If you don't, then you won't. More than likely.
Actually, I would love to also hear from the people from the audience. If they have any questions or remarks, I would love to discuss that further.
Oh yeah, we haven't finished it with the audience yet.
Yeah,
we're getting towards the close. But yeah, any questions, guys? Please raise your hand. Yes, we got a few now. Good. So maybe you do the front first, Brother Gus. Yeah. So remember, just hold it nicely as you did before, and then just give Guzman 5 seconds just to get your.
It's good. No, I was just wondering for you, because we were talking about, investing in the land. If you're not, it's a bit idealistic, but looking from a financial point of view, what would be for you your recommendation in terms of the development of Bali? Like a lot of people want to buy a land, build a villa, all this kind of stuff, right? What is for you think, a great way to invest, to protect the land moving forward? Also knowing that the locals are really...
Yeah, recommendation. Like if someone said like I want to build something in Bali, where would I start from my point of view?
Or even not building, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, are there actually people buying land just to ensure they can protect it? Or I don't know what's
going. I mean, so the first thing to understand is that the price of land is subjective. It's not set by the government. It's based on supply and demand and hype and whatnot. So the price, if you're paying for land in Canggu, is not the actual value of the land. It's what people expect the land to be valued in 5 years or 10 years. So my first thing would be venture out a little bit. If you give yourself, I want to build a project that will be 20 years. Find a piece of land that will be valuable in 5 years. Not valuable now. There's no point finding a piece of land that's valuable now. In 5 years, right? Maybe north 30 minutes, or west 30 minutes. Because then you're not negotiating for $100,000 for a piece of land to buy. It's more closer to maybe, I don't know, maybe half that price or a third of that price, or even to lease the land. If you want to lease the land in Canggu, it's about 30, 40 million sometimes for 100 meters squared per year. 30 minutes from here, 3 million per year for 100 meters squared, 5 million. So when you're already on a piece of land and your mindset is, I'm not here to make a quick buck, I'm here for a long-term project, the amount of money you need, it's so little. And when you lease the land, start with a small building or a small project, get to know the landowner. It's really important also. A landowner is not nameless. How much do you know your landowner? Is he religious? Is he a Mangku? Is he part of the village dinas system? That's really important, because that will dictate what the land will be used for, what you can do for the land. So get to know the landowner. No one really knows their landowner. and venture out a little bit further. Something that will be good in 5 years is not now.
Great question. So just behind you, my darling. Yeah, that's great.
I just want to know how to spell those words so that I can look them up.
How
How to spell all the words, the three Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, Gotong Royong, and Panchasila. I'll give it to you after, my darling. Yeah, no problem. So any other questions?
I would love to hear from the pioneers, maybe Marcus or something that you'd like to share.
Just over here.
What would you like to know?
I would like to know from what I said, how much is something you would disagree with from your personal experience, or something you would give a different angle of from, like, let's say the legal or tax or the mindset when starting a project?
Wow. I mean, yeah, there's so many variables on that. I mean, it's like saying how long's a piece of string. Yeah, depend. I've sold land before, and I've refused to sell land to people before because I didn't like the people, I didn't like their ethics. Bali attracts all kinds of people, and some of them are good and some of them not so good. So, but the island's very selective. I mean, the bad people don't last very long.
Yeah, they have a way of saying, like, Bali either takes you in or spits you out.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So
100%.
And it's just, maybe it's out of luck sometimes, you know? Some people can be the most best people and they get deported, and some are not the best people and they never get deported, or vice versa. Bali is just a game of luck sometimes.
Well, some of that's through jealousy as well.
Yes.
People see you becoming successful and dob you into the authorities and try and get you deported. I've had that before.
That's true. That's true also. You know, Bali is not sometimes the fairest place, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
That's one of the reasons I became.
So nothing I said was you felt wrong, or nothing you felt was too subjective. Like, what about building on the green zone with a non-permanent building? Do you agree with that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't really agree with that. I'd rather see Greenbelt stay as Greenbelt.
Fair.
I know that the local people, if you come from that particular village, then you're allowed to build within 200 meters of an existing building, and you don't need a building permit, but you need to be from that village.
Good point. Yeah. Absolutely agree also. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a question over here. So if you pass the mic, Brother Mark, just over here. So go. Yeah. You can just throw it. He'll catch it. This guy, he's got skills. Okay.
Hi. I was just wondering, because in your discussion before, you talk about how you may opt into a PTPMA or a PT, right? So if you do opt for a PT, right, is nominee a thing here in Indonesia, and is that legal? Because like, let's say we work based on trust, but again, it's money, right, at the end of the day, right? How can we just get money based on trust, right? Because people may just dwindle money and whatnot, right? So is nominee a legal thing? Or let's say I'm a foreigner. It's illegal. Okay. So is there any way to work around it, or?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, if it's like marriage, right? Before me and my wife got married.
Maybe just step back, because people. Does everyone here know what a nominee is? Everyone knows? Some don't. Yeah, go for what is it first?
Oh yeah, so a nominee basically is maybe like a face, right? Indonesian face, only for their name, their KTP, and they're not really part of the PT, but in the eyes of the law, they are the face of the company, right? Right.
And a lot of time in the past they get screwed over.
Absolutely.
Because when the person that got the land sells it, they don't pay the tax. What happened in the past is when the person that has used the nominee sells the land or the villa, they don't pay the tax, and so the nominee, who's never received any money, and the loan agreement was fictive, ends up with a hundreds of billions of rupiah bill, and basically they're paying that off for the rest of their life. It's not fair. So that's another reason why nominee system became illegal.
absolutely.
Safeguard the locals.
Again, the nominee system is illegal, but where I'm coming from is not the nominee system. It's literally you partner with somebody you can work with who's Indonesian, and you don't build your relationship based on money itself only, but on a combined purpose. Right? It's like marriage, right? I mean, people get a prenup before marriage. It was something me and my wife discussed, but we realized that we are aligned in our marriage values, and we didn't want to have a prenup. My parents had a prenup for different reasons, but it's the same thing, right? If let's say you try to talk with a potential partner from the point of view of money, of power, you're going to attract people who are looking at you as a walking wallet. If you're coming at it from an angle like I'm here to do some good, and you prove it by being there locally for at least 1 year, by really doing some positive change, you're going to attract different people. That's just the way that nature works. The law of attraction. If you're coming into Bali with lots of money and you tell people how much money you have, you're driving this fancy car, that tells people that you've got money to spend, and you're going to attract people who want to take that money. I would suggest not to come with that mindset. You're coming here to do some good. Come in with no money. Don't tell people how much money you have. Wear flip-flops. Be chill. But absolutely, that is the risk. Yeah, absolutely. The biggest reason that the whole PT system was flawed was the fact that Indonesians, maybe in the beginning, they were very honest and not greedy, but when the company kind of skyrocketed, they kind of took over the whole company and kicked out the foreigner or declared the foreigner to the immigration. Absolutely. That is something to think about. But the way I'm saying is, I'm looking at things a bit more optimistic. What if with only 10 million, you set up a PT with a friend that you can connect with, and you build something beautiful, instead of starting with a PMA straight away on day one and having to be in so much debt, because normally $200,000 is something you would borrow, and then just suffering the whole way, and then 3 years after, then you're bankrupt. I mean, so many businesses in Bali just flop after 3 years or even 1 year, especially in Canggu. So I'm just saying that there's a possibility. What if you had done it a bit differently? Trust a little bit. And you can get a lawyer. You can get a lawyer, get it notarized that the Indonesian representative guarantees so-and-so assets, notarized. That's possible. I'm sure it's possible to have some kind of agreement. I'm just saying that the option is there. It makes it that instead of focusing so much on making money, you're focusing on making sustainable change. And that's why Bali is where it is today, because of all the sustainable partnership that happened prior to 20 years ago, maybe. Subjective.
So just any more questions? Anyone? Yeah, getting there. Okay, we're getting there. So just a few things I want to say first, and then remember those 2 points which I gave you before was anything else that within the realm of tonight's conversation you feel like, hey, I need to say that one thing, and then Tilihita Kadana, I want you to explain what that is, because I think it's very pertinent to tonight's conversation. So for everybody else here, as I mentioned, what we do, RIB and Associates or PT Career Life Group, we're basically like a gateway to Indonesia or growth strategist Indonesia. There's 3 things that we do. One is what we call a feasibility tour. So if you have an idea that you're wondering, is this going to work? Most of the time people go to, an agency and they write them a beautiful report and they get the report and say yes or no. What we say is don't think about the report, just come. And because through this show we know, the key leaders, stakeholders, disruptors of about 10 different market sectors or industries, we basically connect you straight to them. We sit down, coffee, drink, and we talk. So the questions that you have, you're getting real-time feedback. One of the biggest killers is wrong information by people who used to do that thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but their knowledge is no longer relevant to now. So that feasibility tour then gives you the idea of, I came with this idea, it's not going to work, but this one just might. Number one. And then number two, we play part of the process with you. We don't give you advice only. We help to connect you to the right people, to your audience in whichever particular market you're looking for. Obviously, we need to know that your intentions are good first, right? We don't work with people that we know are just trying to do the wrong thing from the get-go. And the third thing is about promotion. It's about how do you communicate the message organically to your market. What we're doing now, right? Imagine Krishna. I know Krishna. I love Krishna, right? He's a great guy. He's a great bridge between East and West. So if you get a chance to speak to him afterwards, do. But here's the thing. If you saw an Instagram ad of Krishna, you say, yeah, that looks well done. But if you sit down for an hour and a half, and you listen to him speak, he can't hide who he is. Not with the questions that come up for me. He can't hide. So at the end of the day, I know that everybody here looks at him and says, I like this guy. I can do business with this guy. That's powerful. That's organic. So these are the sorts of things that we do, right? For medium to large size companies, either coming into Indonesia or already in Indonesia, want to grow within Indonesia. So if we can help you, then get in touch with us. So the other important thing I want to say is thank you to Brother Guzman over here, who's here every week. I remember when I first met you, Guzman, and it was difficult to do what you do today. There were 3 people doing the job that you're doing now. 1 person, 3. They've saved some money. But you're amazing. Brother Hadis, where are you? Hadis is around here somewhere, takes the most incredible photos and is upskilling, learning how to do graphics and all the other things that work behind the scenes. And then there's obviously Sister Ayu, who's here as well, who's a community manager here at Tropical Nomad. This was all started by a conversation with me and Ichi Yamada, who's here a long time ago. And so I'm very thankful for Tropical Nomad being the technical partner of SpeakuP Monday, and my brother and my sisters as well. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you to the audience for coming. As I mentioned before, the game we played before is important, because even though you want to meet this guy, which is great, but the people here are often as important, if not more, for the next step that you need to take. So that little game we play of people talking about the people that they want to meet next or who they are, after we're going to take a photo, but go and speak to them. Don't delay, because us being here is unique. Okay? And then finally, my brother Krishna. So we organize this on a drop of a hat because we can. Yes, we can. I want to thank you, my brother, because you've always been a solid guy that I met 7 years ago, whenever it was. And also shout out to Lenny and Juka, my brothers. Great to see you as well. Have you on again soon. But much respect, because you're a bridge between, Balinese culture and the Western world. And it's very important that people from my perspective, I'm a bridge as well, but it's very important people from our neck of the woods understand the facilitation and the bridge. That way comes with the mindset, the heart set, the soul set that I think will really serve Bali well. So thank you very much indeed, brother, for being here and saying yes.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
All right. So those last 2 questions and whatever else you want to say, and we'll wrap after that.
So legalization is very locally based. So sometimes the laws of the local village are much more powerful than your national laws. Don't piss off the local laws. Those are more important, because these are the Kalian Dinas, the Kalian Adat, the Kepala Desa. These are the people who are in charge of the village. And most of the villages, they have a very isolated view of Indonesia. So sometimes if you try to come in with some national regulations, you will lose. You could tell your neighbor, hey, don't burn plastic because it's against the national laws. You will lose. So go back to the local laws, talk to your Kalian Dinas, your Kalian Adat. They know much more about how you should be living in your house than the national laws. Then maybe you're very expensive lawyer or a very expensive notaris. That's my last giveaway. Please, that's very important. Trihita Karana, respect for nature, respect for people, respect for a higher being. Now I would say that Bali is respectful for people, respectful for the higher being, not enough for nature. But it is still a strong philosophy, a Balinese philosophy. You want to win any argument, you want to convince any Balinese person, you just say Trihita Karana. They have a hard time to fight that. If you are saying, don't burn plastic because it hurts me, because it's smelly, you lose. If you say, Trihita Karana, this is not good for the environment, much stronger argument. So don't forget to use Gotong Royong, saves you a lot of money. Trihita Karana for any argument. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, understand that diversity is what makes us strong. Use that in your business, in your projects. It's going to help you a lot.
Everybody, round of applause, Krishna Chieppa. Great.